This is ITV. Certainly the best.
All right, many thanks for joining me once again. You're still watching TMI. My name is Ugochukwu Bamidele. I do remember the Monday edition, definitely. Myself and Sonny Duke, we get to run this. Start to your week on a Breakfast Current Affairs program. Now, joining me on this side, to deal with a very interesting issue, we're looking at economic policies and impact on governance. I've got Dr. Femi Ajijala, Sir Femi Ajijala, with me in the studio. He is a financial expert and economist. And thanks for joining me, sir.
Good morning.
Right. And Dr. Joe Aligbe is also with me in the studio, a unionist, a former CUC chairman, and National Vice President Association of Senior Civil Servants in the country. Many thanks for joining me also. Okay, so let's get straight to business. Let's start off with one of the very trending ones right now, the return of the president to the country, and looking at how that would affect the economy. Is there any, would there be any effect, his return to the country, taking over? Because a whole lot of people say he's been away for a long time, has brought some shake and uncertainties as regards the economy. Let me start with you, Sir Femi.
Well, first we thank God that the president is back. And just like if a family head if a family head happens to travel, a number of things will be left in abeyance.
Okay.
Certain decisions cannot be made. For instance, if there's a need for cabinet shake-up, the acting president will not want to go into such an area. If there are certain things that are major policy issues that will require, that will have long-term impact, and that will require a decision by the incumbent, those things will be left in abeyance because he needs to clear with the substantive president. Okay. So these are some of the things, for instance, that we have been holding. Then anybody too, naturally, some of the ministers know that, he's acting president. There is still there is still somebody else who is the boss. So some of them might still be bypassing the acting president and be talking directly with the president to put across their own ideas and all those things, depending on the relationship, personal relationship with the president. Okay. So to that extent, the level of compliance with acting president, something might vary. So, but now that the president is back, the buck stops on the table, he's the one who is elected, he's back, then certain decisions can be made depending on his health. Assuming he's able to go to work and is agile, he can take a number of decisions straight like that, then the economy will move. But if it is still the same docile form and a number of things now has to be referred to him, now that his closer, small issues might be referred to him, then we might also be worse off.
Okay.
So it all depends.
Okay. Dr.
on
Joe,
the level of his health.
Yeah. Let me come to you, Dr. Joe. Yeah. He mentioned persons taking advantage of their relationship with the president, even while he was away. Probability of that happening, actually. When the president transmits power to his vice, making him acting president, doesn't that mean also that what he's able to do, the acting president should be able to do that? Should things wait for the president, especially when it has to do with the economy at a time when Nigeria is, really working so hard to come out of a very biting recession?
In principle, yes, but not so in practice.
Okay.
And that is why you have people referring to cabal in the system. Cabal, if you are very familiar with power play and those in power, there are really those that call the shots in power, in the corridors of power. Okay. You may not know them. For instance, if you watch in the few moments before the coming of Mr. President a few days ago, you will understand that one or two ministers was almost making statements that were very weighty and powerful, even more than that of
the acting president.
A case in point is the Interior Minister. And you begin to see, and such things comes because of their personal relationship, maybe with Mr. President. So, like in practice, it is not always correct that whatever is transmitted to you as an acting president, that you can really execute it.
So
because there are those actually that there that call the shots in the corridor of power. And if it's not among those people, there's just no way he can do it. And again, the first question you ask to say, oh, impact. The impact could be positive and it could be negative.
On the economy.
On the economy. For instance, you will understand that some have argued that his body language at the beginning of this regime, of this Mr. President's tenure when he came on board, was actually responsible for the flight, capital flight. Many have adduced to that. So it depends on how Mr. President handles the economy, his body's language, and also too, you will understand that also that the vice president, though he was acting, can't do so much. For instance, the issue of Babachi Lawa has been there. I mean, the SGF who was on suspension. There was no way the acting president could take a decision on that. So there are many things he couldn't do.
Well, don't you think because the acting president at the time, as vice president, was head
of that committee? Of course, he was. So he cannot report to himself. Okay. So that's why there are many things he couldn't just do as acting president. Okay. And so the coming of Mr. President is welcome. It is our hope that he will be strong and fit enough to perform the office, the functions of his office.
Okay, Sir Femi, let me ask right now. One big issue across the country right now is the different exchange rates. For those going on pilgrimage, it's somewhere around 200, and if you're doing business, official exchange 350, 340, 360, depending. What do you make of this, and let's talk about its impact also.
You see, when you begin to have price differential between economy and religion, you have problem. In my personal view, religion is very personal. If you want to go anywhere, you want to worship your God, it's personal. Nigeria does not have a state religion. That's number one. Then, secondly, we don't need that disparity. Some people may even collect that money without traveling. Then they just recycle it and make some money. Things that will keep the wheel of the economy moving are things that should even be given preferences, like access to foreign forex by small, medium enterprises. To attract some discount, to attract preference. But those things are not those are the things that will keep the economy moving. Those are the things that will make jobs sustainable. You are traveling to somebody else's country. It's like holiday. Why should government be the one to subsidize your holiday? That is exactly what the country is doing, subsidizing holiday, subsidizing religious activities. And to me, and this is what we really need to do, let us play down on religion. Let us play up economic issues. Let us see the issue is, if I am well off economically, why should I be worried about how much to pay about school fees, about my health? I'll be able to take care of my health and those of my family. But when I cannot earn enough income to take care of myself, then then I am depending on government, and the same government is now subsidizing my travel.
Okay,
which is not priority.
Some persons actually argue that this disparity or this difference for various purposes, trips abroad, different exchange rates, education, depending on your influence also, there is a different exchange rate. Say it bars or it's frightening investors and the impacts on our economy.
Yes, it does. If, for instance, I can have access to Forex at 200 naira, and you are going to get your own at 350 naira, and we are both bringing in the same products to the country, you can sell below my cost price. I mean, I will be able to sell below your cost price. Don't forget that Forex is cost to anybody who is importing. So if I get mine at 200 and you are getting yours at 350, you can import your own, I import mine, and I start selling at 300. How do you make your own? Meanwhile, you are still going to pay tax, import duty, and all those on the basis of the value, import value, invoice value of what you are importing. I will be paying mine on the import value at the 200. So, whichever way you look at it, you are at a disadvantage. And when you bring in certain things or raw materials and you cannot sell, and meanwhile I go ahead to bring finished goods and I am selling, then automatically some people will be kept out of job. Your staff, you won't be able to pay because you are not selling. Then because you are not selling and you are unable to pay the workers, in the same way, the workers will not be able to buy foodstuff, they will not be able to pay their landlord. They will not be able to pay electricity bill. You begin to see the impact, the multiplier effect from that perspective. So it's a shame. And that is why the issue of this disparity in exchange rate for different purposes, for medical, for education, for whatever. If anybody wants to send his child to any school anywhere in the world, it is a fundamental right. But is the country responsible for such spending when there are schools here? The major issue is if those making decisions about our health, about our education, have their children or their family members using those facilities, they will make sure that it is well put in place. Okay. If, for instance, Mr. President didn't have to travel abroad, he can as well bring all those equipment they use in taking care of him to the National Medical Center in Abuja. Then we will have those facilities and bring in those experts. It will impact, the knowledge will spread around all those doctors and those medical personnel that are in that center. Then we begin to acquire this skill. But if all we do every time is even test abroad, education abroad, at the end of the day, we live in a confused society. So these are some of the issues.
All right, Dr. Joe Aligbe, just quickly, another issue when we talk about economic policies would be tax. And recently, the Ministry of Finance has, focused heavily on taxation, granting, I think, tax holiday for some segments of investors, from entertainment to some other parts. What's your take on this, actually?
Well, tax is one of the major sources of revenue for government.
Okay.
Nigeria, though you may see it as generalization, but I think that is a fact, will not want to pay tax. Many Nigerians will not want to pay tax.
Well, a whole lot of people are paying tax.
I say many Nigerians. I didn't say most Nigerians.
Okay.
Many Nigerians will not want to pay tax because they see it as a burden. And government must ensure that those taxes are collected.
Okay.
And the citizens also should demand, accountability for such revenues and how they are spent. It is good that the federal government is calling for increase in revenue collection, and a way to make people compliant and to encourage them or motivate them to pay, government is granting some waivers, some holidays for certain categories of sectors of the economy, which is encouraging. Also, government has been given a window recently that if you have not been paying tax, you have the opportunity now to come and pay, and no, you won't be prosecuted for not paying and all that. So we expect that people should be able to enjoy that window of opportunity that have been offered so that they will pay taxes. But I think what is not acceptable to many of us is multiplicity of taxes. When you begin to duplicate, local government will collect, state government will collect, and at the same time, such taxes are killing small businesses. They will come in different names and in different shapes. Some will collect for environmental sanitation. They will contend for signposts, what they call maybe your signboard, your business listing. They collect for all manners. So you come coming to collect 4 or 5 taxes for that small business. So I think we need to discourage that. And I'm sure that the government is working on that to ensure that it is very clear to those who are paying taxes and how they should pay it. But I think in all, my take on it is that we must pay tax. People and we should encourage protect tax, particularly businesses and the so-called rich men. I use the word so-called because we need to define who is a rich man, who is not a rich man. Many of them don't pay taxes. Those who are paying taxes are those small businesses and civil servants under the payee platform. This thing is taken at source. But most big men or big businesses are not paying this tax. For instance, if you look at our politicians who are in the Senate or in the House of Rep or all those things, are they really paying taxes? They own businesses, are they really paying the correct taxes? And that is why sometime in the former government in Edo State was seen to be hard on people, but it paid off. That is the right thing to do. So I will encourage that government should insist that people should pay tax. But on the other hand, citizens also demand accountability from government for the taxes they collected.
All right, Sir Femi, let's quickly delve into this other part. Something that's also trending at this time, the issue of some persons allegedly paid bribes to the tune of about 400 million.
400 million or billion?
Billion, it's billion.
400 billion.
400 billion.
Yeah, that's an estimate that came up of recent that the total bribe collected by public officials is 400 billion. You see, when you pay bribe, what are you trying to do? You are trying to obtain undue advantage. That is what you are not entitled to. Is corruption. So, if I have to give you, there are 2 sides to it. For instance, if an official, a government official, who is being paid to do a job, fails to do that job unless he gets his hand wet, is corruption. Then, when he collects that money, the way he will spend it will not be like when you work hard to earn it.
Okay.
That is one aspect. The second aspect is when you are entitled to something legitimately and you work hard on it to make sure that you get it, and maybe you are bidding for contract and you want to give it to the best performer in terms of quote, in terms of quality and all other criteria put in place. If you leave it to the best, it will cost the government less. But if you already earmark somebody who is going to do it, and you will give that person every opportunity because you have a share in what is coming up, then it may be a job that person does not even have competence in. So it comes in all manners of shade, and definitely it does not help a country to get the best from the citizens. For instance, as a chartered accountant, as a consultant, there are a number of proposals you write, you think through it, you put it into 2 pages of document, you submit it, but there are 10 other pages that you cannot put there. By the time they just take this in and say, oh, this is a brilliant idea, they extract a lot of information from you and go and give it to somebody else who never think through. That person will not know, will not be able to implement it as originally conceptualized. So, who is at a disadvantage? 2 people. The person who thought through, who has now lost out. He is not going to think for you in the future. 2, the person, the society, because they are not getting the best possible from such situation. Okay. So, those bribing by different organs of government, those in ministry, parastatals, police, law enforcement agencies, these people, if they collect bribe, apparently it is going to influence their decisions.
All right, I'm going to have to halt you here. When we come back, because we need to take a break for the AM News update right now. When we come back, we'll look at all of this, 400 billion naira. That's huge within the public sector already, and then look at it in the light of the fight against corruption, which public servants are supposed to even be championing. And quickly, we have got to wrap up our discussion on this side of it, looking at economic policies and its impact on governance. Now, just before the news update, we're looking at the 400 billion naira bribe, that supposedly went around in the last 1 year within the public service. And we're looking at the fact that public servants were supposed to actually, drive the anti-corruption war by the present administration, and then looking at 400 billion naira bribe going round in just a very short period of time. I mean, that's a huge chunk of money. So let me come to you, Dr. Joe Aligbe. Sir Femi is also with me in the studio this morning. Dr. Joe, quickly, the public servants, like I said, are supposed to spearhead the fight against corruption, and within them, 400 billion naira went round.
Yes.
I mean, what does this portend? This administration's mantra is anti-corruption.
The figure is very alarming.
Okay.
Knowing very well that bribery is just an aspect of corruption. You have other various forms of corruption. So if bribery for 1 year accounted for 400 billion naira, it is very alarming, it is very frightening, particularly in the phase of the current regime's, current administration fight against corruption. But if you look at that report very well, about 8 agencies were identified as bribe takers. Number 1 on the list was the police, followed by prosecutors. Then the next bribe takers were judges and magistrates, followed by vehicle driver license registration officer, then followed by tax officer, custom officers, then before you now get to land registry as the last. So 8 categories of public servants were identified as bribe takers in that particular report. And I think it is a very good one, because this is the first time you are having a government institution like the National Bureau for Statistics coming up with such a report. It means that, what it means for us is that, 1, there is sincerity on the part of government to fight corruption. If government agency could come out boldly, and it should send a message to the bribe takers, because those institutions that were mentioned actually were those that are supposed to fight corruption. It was supposed to be the agency and institution that should help government to fight and minimize the incidents of corruption. But in this report, the reverse is the case. What it means for us is that the fight against corruption has not really been there as it were. But again, my judgment may be faulty in the sense that the report for previous years, we don't have it. This is the baseline information. So if you use a baseline information to judge, your judgment might be faulty. But so what I want to say on this is that it is good that such a report is coming. It is also a good omen for us that the government institution can come with such a report. All we need to do now is that those agencies that have been mentioned, which ordinarily should drive the process of anti-corruption, should sit down and look inward and say, what do we do? I am not surprised that those sectors or those officers were mentioned, because ordinarily they are the ones that come in contact. They are those who are at risk, because people take police, for instance. People want shortcuts.
People deal with them every day.
People want shortcuts. For instance, you are driving on the way, you do not have your papers, you don't have, then you are bound to take, you are likely to give a bribe to a traffic officer to allow you go. Right. So my appeal is that those agents that have been mentioned, they should take it in good faith and fight corruption.
Sir Femi, quickly, let me get your take on this as we wrap up right now.
I will also want to look at it from this additional perspective. People should strive to be compliant whenever they require anything. If you have your vehicle, obtain your vehicle particulars. Make sure they are up to date. Pay the normal rate. Usually, then if you are doing your certificate of occupancy or like the land registry and all those things, and you begin to do things the way it should be done, you begin to work with integrity. You begin to do your things the normal time it should be paid. You are supposed to pay your tax. You file your tax returns on time. You pay your normal tax. Then you can insist on your right and insist not to bribe.
Okay.
So the moment we as citizens stop looking for shortcuts in solving a lot of our problems, then we will be better off.
All right.
I have been stopped before and I insisted. And at the end of the day, you might waste 1 or 2 times. But each time such officers see you on the highway, they say, this one, you will not listen. You have set yourself on the path of freedom from harassment. But once you give, you will are expected to continue to give. You become meat to these agencies.
Right.
So on the part of these agencies too, their leadership should begin to take certain decisions, put in place certain strategies that will ensure that things are done thoroughly.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to wrap it up here right now. Thank you so much, Dr. Joe Aligbe, for making up time to be here this morning. And Sir Femi Ajijala, thank you so much for making up time out of your busy schedule.